Hey, what's going on? Welcome back because there's a fresh Hollow Knight update to talk about. And this one is all about polish, fixes, and a few long overdue cleanup changes. So let us start with the most visible addition right away. Traditional Chinese translation has been added. That is the kind of update that might not sound dramatic at first glance, but for a game with the kind of worldwide audience Hollow Knight has built over the years, it matters a lot. It opens the door for more players to experience the game in a language that feels natural to them, which is always a good move for accessibility and reach. Alongside that, there is a fix for the low audio volume when moving through the inventory, which is the sort of thing that can quietly make the experience feel off, even if everything else is working fine. Little sound issues like that can throw off the rhythm of menu navigation, so it is nice to see that cleaned up. There is also a text alignment fix here that should help a very specific but very real annoyance. If you had a wide square key like Shift or Space bound to an action, text could overlap in the interface. That means the game was not always laying things out properly depending on your control setup, and now that problem has been addressed. This is one of those changes that most players might never consciously think about, but the moment it is wrong, it becomes impossible to ignore, especially if you like custom bindings or play on a keyboard setup with remapped actions. On the gameplay side, there are a few fixes that really stand out because they touch enemy behavior, combat timing, and some of the game's trickier edge cases. One issue involved overcharm notches being unintentionally removed in a specific instance, which sounds like a pretty nasty little bug if you happen to run into it during a build where your charm setup mattered a lot. Another fix deals with Radiance's orb attack, where the hitbox could linger a bit longer than intended if the orb expired in the air. That kind of thing can make combat feel unfair in a way that is hard to explain unless you have experienced it yourself, because the attack appears to be over, but the danger is still there for a moment too long. Now that has been tightened up. Then there are some quirky enemy and interaction fixes that sound almost funny until you realize they were probably messing with combat consistency in frustrating ways. Maulurks being pushable by infected balloons has been fixed, which is exactly the kind of interaction that feels like it should never have been happening in the first place. Mantis traders can no longer be damaged while underground, which also makes sense because if something is beneath the surface, you really should not be able to tag it as though it were still out in the open. These are the sort of changes that make encounters feel more reliable and less random, and that matters a lot in a game where timing and reading enemy behavior are such a big part of the experience. The journal also got some attention, and honestly, this is one of the nicest clusters of fixes in the whole update because it touches the game sim's sense of progression and reward. Journal notification icons were sometimes not appearing, and in some cases the wrong icon could show up instead. On top of that, the new journal entry pop-up was not always displaying correctly. If you're the kind of player who likes slowly filling out the hunter's journal and tracking every creature you have faced, those notifications matter more than people realize. They are part of the satisfaction loop. When they go missing, the game loses a bit of that reward signal, so it is good to see those bugs handled. There's also a fix for minor cases where hunters note kills were not being awarded as intended, which means progression tracking should be more dependable now. Combat and defensive tools got a little cleanup too. Baldur's Shell had an instance where it could linger longer than intended, and that has been corrected. Double damage now plays the correct audio clip, instead of previously using the single damage sound effect, which may sound like a purely cosmetic detail, but audio feedback is a huge part of making combat feel readable. When the sound does not match the hit, the whole moment can feel slightly off. Heavy Fool's dash attack was also sometimes not traveling its full distance, so that has been fixed as well. That kind of movement bug can completely change how an enemy pressure sequence feels, especially if you are trying to learn patterns or react cleanly during a tougher fight. And then, of course, there are the broader improvements that round everything out.